This is a first official instrumental.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Straight Facts, a sports show that educates and entertains. I'm Jules Schmitz, accompanied by James Jackson, Jake Galley, and crunching numbers in the back, we got Stat Matt. This past week in sports, Ben Simmons signed a 5-year, $170 million extension with the Sixers. Novak Djokovic outdueled Roger Federer to defend his title at Wimbledon. Simona Halep beat Serena Williams in straight sets to win her second major title. The Angels threw a combined no-hitter on the night they honored Tyler Skaggs. The Phillies also survived to beat the Dodgers on a walk-off double by Bryce Harper. Here's a fact, straight at you. The NBA never fails to keep you on the edge of your seat. With the trade of Russell Westbrook to Houston, it's the first time two former MVPs have played together after previously playing together on a different team in the past. Will the Rockets be able to do what the Thunder never could and win a title with these two?
Here's what I'll say right off the bat.
Right.
In terms of straight value, I think we can agree Westbrook is a better player than Chris Paul.
Yeah.
However, there's a reason that when given the chance to play play Russell Westbrook and play James Harden together, they chose to play Russell Westbrook and Thabo Sefolosha. It's because they do the same things.
Yeah.
They overlap too much, and in my opinion, I think Houston will be better, but it still doesn't change the end result. I don't think this is a team that gets them to the mountaintop.
I don't think it's the team, the personnel, and the play style they like to play with. I don't think that gets them to that title contention either. And when you look at what Chris Paul, we said that we can agree Russell Westbrook is probably right now in his career a better player than Chris Paul is right now in his career. But what Chris Paul is able to do and is more willing to do is play off the ball. And play off the ball better. I don't think Russell Westbrook has that great ability to be able to play off the ball because even though he's going there as a primary ball handler, the usage, who will still use the ball more on offense will be James Harden and will be forever be James Harden until he's not a member of the Rockets.
Right. And, when you just look at the pure package that they gave up, Houston sends CP3, 2 future firsts, and 2 pick swaps for Russell Westbrook. So really not even close to the haul that Anthony Davis or Paul George, his former teammate, commands, but still a good haul for Oklahoma City.
Yeah, they have 10 or 11 future picks in the next coming years. They have legitimately a haul of picks coming in now.
And, people on Twitter have been comparing it, saying that it's better than what Hinkie did. And in terms of grand scale, what they're doing is like Hinkie times 100 because Hinkie came in and had no assets to trade during the process. That's kind of the point of it.
Right.
Presti, on the other hand, has built up this team to where they have 2 superstars where you trade those two and he got more assets than Sam Hinkie did in the 4 years of the process.
That's what I'm saying.
Just because of you have those 2 huge stars.
In one offseason, too. So the process, quote-unquote, that the Thunder might have to go through could end up being 2 or 3 years quicker, much quicker than the process the Sixers had to go through because you can use those assets and turn them around, and we have a huge free agent market coming up in the 2021 season.
I think, just to add to what you boys are saying, I think that's exactly what Presti's mentality is trying to do a low-key rebuild, kind of like the Philadelphia 76ers did when Hinkie was around. Like Covington, McConnell, they weren't exactly superstars now, were they? And I still would not consider them to be superstars, but at the same time, Philly learned to love them, and I think that's what Presti's trying to rebuild out in OKC right now.
Well, it's also the first time that market has ever not been competitive. Ever since they moved from Seattle, OKC has been a title contender and has been building up this core. Now that core is finally dismantled. We're going to get to see a little bit of how that market reacts to a bad team, because it's really easy being a fan of a good team. That's not hard.
It's true, but they're also the only thing happening in Oklahoma City.
That's a good counterpoint.
It helps you maintain loyal fans when you're not buying. No one else is buying for their attention. The only thing happening in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I really do think it was all in all in their best interest to run it back with Westbrook and got a little more mileage with him and maybe even Steven Adams as well.
Right, we can't forget.
Exactly, why not? Yeah. Why wouldn't you do that? Sam Presti, again, I believe he jumped the gun, but on to the Rockets. How do you guys think Harden and Westbrook will coexist? That's been the talk.
We've for many different reasons on many different times. So I just don't think it will work. They will be more cohesive as a team. I think Russ and Harden like each other than CP3 and Harden ever did. But their off-the-court chemistry is not going to translate to their on-the-court chemistry. You said it. They're two players who do pretty much the exact same thing. Harden just shoots it a little bit better.
Right, and like to me, when you look at how they're going to coexist, obviously they've changed, but I think you have to look back to what they did on the Thunder. And when they were on the Thunder, Harden would still, like, I mainly look at last year Harden was there, the 11-12 season when they got beat by the Heat. In the finals, Harden was coming off the bench. He only started 2 games the entire year. But he still had a better true shooting percentage than Westbrook. He had a higher win share than Westbrook. He had a higher field goal percentage than Russell Westbrook. And it was largely because Westbrook was there a year longer. He's a year older. And they were just more okay with centering their team around the more established player, which is good. But like I said in the beginning, there's a reason that he didn't start with Westbrook, because there's an overlap of skills. I think you're going to find that here as well.
And when you go back to how they were on the Thunder and to now, Westbrook has a huge transformation from who he was to who he is now. Harden doesn't have that big of a transformation. Harden was pretty much the same kind of player he was in OKC than he is now. He's just better. He was a mini version of himself. Shooting threes and getting to the line at a very significant amount. He's just be able to perfect that. But Westbrook's game is different than it was in OKC. Harden's isn't that much.
Yeah, I mean, guys, comparing Harden and Westbrook, there was a stat I read this week. It says there's only 2 players in NBA history to have a season with a usage rate of over 40%, and that was Harden as a recent and Westbrook's MVP season. It'll definitely be interesting to see how they fit together, especially since we've seen personalities kind of clash in the past via front office decisions with this team. Westbrook can't really shoot, we all know that, and Harden loves to be on the ball.
Right, and when you have, first of all, to have 2 players who have usage rates over 40% is wild. To smash them both on the same team, it's further driving home that point. I just do not see it working for long term. Look, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be interesting, especially when you from like October to December, October to January before the All-Star break. It's going to be very fun and very exciting when it gets down to the nitty-gritty, and now we have to strategize and win games, especially late game situations, and come playoff time. That's where you see you're gonna see it fall apart.
Well, and when you look back to OKC, when you think about those late game situations, it was pretty much Harden most of the time, because he was the one guy who could distribute and he could shoot way better than Westbrook. That was a big reason the ball was in his hands. When you look at Russell Westbrook, even when he had Kevin Durant, one of the best players in the league, he wasn't okay with deferring to Durant. And when you look at all the guys who Westbrook has played with, eventually he drives them away because he likes the ball in his hands all the time. Right. And as we said, it's not going to be an option when he's playing with James Harden, who ostensibly is a better on-ball player, is a better player overall. I've said this for a while. Is a better player overall than Russell Westbrook.
And what you really have to look at is when you move Chris Paul and insert Russell Westbrook, does Russell Westbrook take away the problems that the Rockets had in previous seasons?
I don't think so.
Going on horrible shooting stretches, turning the ball over, not playing good defense. Does he fix any of those situations?
Sounds like a Russell Westbrook hallmark.
That's what I'm saying. Does he fix any of those? Does he upgrade you more in any of those situations than what Chris Paul did?
No,
especially on the defensive end. No, he doesn't.
Right. Chris Paul's a better defender. Chris Paul's a better off-ball shooter. Like, if anything, Chris Paul is the one
Chris
who really...
Paul's a better half-court facilitator, better half-court game manager.
Now, what you do have is a kind of like a two-headed monster. I'm not going to compare it to Cleveland because... Kyrie and LeBron, they were 2 different players, but they both handled the ball. So when you look at that situation compared to this situation, maybe you can make it work. Like pick and roll, now Capella can run pick and roll with Harden. He can run pick and roll with Westbrook, and when he does it with Westbrook, you'll have Harden wide open in the corner most of the time. However, it's not the case when you look at that the other way around. If Russell Westbrook doesn't have the ball in his hands, he's just nowhere near as effective, which also then leads you to believe, okay, Daryl Morey had problems with Mike D'Antoni. He wanted to fire him and apparently got pushed back from leadership. They end up signing D'Antoni. Now, do you consider possibly if things go south in the beginning, do they move on from D'Antoni to get it in the new system? I don't. There's still a lot of question marks when you look at these 2 together.
Well, I mean, and the biggest when you fight with D'Antoni and players is, are you going to side with your head coach or are you going to side with your star player?
Usually it's a star player.
The star player wins out.
Yeah.
So if I have Russell Westbrook and Russell Westbrook saying, look, I just don't fit in this D'Antoni system, guess who gets moved? Not Russell Westbrook, Mike D'Antoni. Yeah, and that's a lot of talk. We talked about how Russell Westbrook and James Harden were on the Thunder looking back. Now let's look at what kind of players they are now, because that'll really tell us if these 2 are able to mix. And when I look at James Harden, we already said he was a mini version of himself in OKC. That version has only gotten better. He shoots 2.5 more threes per 36 minutes, which is what the Rockets love. He's become a better on-ball defender. 1.8 to 3.8 defensive win shares on the game, on the games.
Which he's always knocked for. He's always knocked for his defense.
But and big moment, if he's asked to step up on defense, James Harden can do. He's not going to make crazy defensive plays.
He had 2 steals last year per game. That's pretty good.
That's among league leaders.
Right.
Paul George led the league with 2.2 or something like that. Mm-hmm. So that's among league leaders. But if you look at the player Westbrook was then and he is now, he's pretty much better in every situation except for the one thing that the Rockets really need him to do, and that's shoot the ball. Russell Westbrook is a worse shooter now than he was back then. He attempts more threes per game, but shoots a worse percentage. You can tell me exactly what percentage he shoots.
Yeah, he shoots 29%.
Same as who?
Mr. Markelle Fultz, who, by the way, can't shoot threes. There's a stat out there that I saw. So of the players, there's I forget exactly how many players, but out of players to shoot 2,500 3-point attempts, so really more modern era guys. The highest ever was Steph Curry, right? We can predict that.
Of course.
The lowest out of all of them was Russell Westbrook. It was Russell Westbrook.
And MPG?
For a guy who shoots so much, he cannot be as bad as he is at it. Like we talked about, though, there are redeeming factors in Russell Westbrook's game. He won an MVP. He's a very good player. He's a walking triple-double. When you look at, I think, for him to be effective on his new team, he's going to have to be penetrator, kick out, or drive to the rim, which he's very good at doing.
Yeah.
He's very good at creating for himself, getting to the rim, which is what Harden does, but Harden's looking to draw fouls. So I think the defense reacts a little differently when it's Westbrook, because they know that he doesn't really want to get fouled. He's not that great of a shooter. So I think it makes the defense react a little bit more, and because of that, guys like Eric Gordon, guys like James Harden, will be left open in the corner or wherever they are at the 3-point line, and maybe that's where you work around to, we still get those 3-point shots. It's just not Russell Westbrook taking them.
Right, but you just got to hope that then. You got to hope that Russell Westbrook is the one driving most often, because the 2 areas the Rockets offense is predicated on 3 things: 3-point shots, layups, and foul shots. Okay, but let's take the layups out of it because everyone
Layup/dunk, whatever.
Yeah, right. Everyone can make a layup or a dunk. But Russell Westbrook has also had a huge slide in free throw percentage, going from 82% of his career to 65% last year.
Yeah, that's
for a guard. That is,
and that's from that year that we were talking about, from the Thunder year in 11-12 to this past year. I mean, 20%. It's like something is fundamentally wrong.
For a person who drives the lane as much and as ferocious as he does, and how many fouls he's going to draw, to shoot 65% is like. To have the ball in his hands that much, he's like, it's Russell Westbrook. We know what kind of player he is. If he has the ball in his hands under 2 minutes and it's coming off a swing, guess what? Russell Westbrook is driving. And guess what? He's probably going to get fouled. So now you're relying on a 65% free throw shooter at the end of games to knock down probably what will be pivotal free throws. And you know why that clashes? Because James Harden, as for the last, 3-4 years, has both attempted and made the most free throws in the NBA. So you're taking valuable free throws from the best free throw shooter in the league, the one who shoots them the most, to a guy who shoots sub 70.
Yeah, and if you, just a general rule, if you're going to be inefficient, and everything else, like Russell Westbrook is when he's shooting the ball, you have to be efficient from the line. You have to make people respect you, not want to foul you. You're giving a defender an out if you can't shoot a free throw, which, when you look at raw stats, another guy who can't really shoot, another guy who is a walking triple-double, so to speak, is Ben Simmons. He's another guy.
And there it is. The time of the episode that it comes back to Ben Simmons and the Sixers.
It all comes back.
We hit it early.
Why wouldn't it?
When you
hit it early
like
this time.
Crackpot, strings, it all connects back to Sam Hinkie and the Sixers
I feel like,
in the process.
you ever seen that one, you ever seen 21 Jump Street and that one scene where they're trying to put all the yarn and trying to see who did it, and Ice Cube looks at him and goes, "What are you guys, autistic?" I feel like that's every time Jake does that.
But seriously, if you had to compare him to another player, okay, so another team who has 2 great players, one of which can't really shoot, and the other which is very good and dominant with their ball with the ball in their hands, Joel Embiid and the Sixers and Ben Simmons, they fit that. So when you look at Russell Westbrook, can he get away playing the Ben Simmons role of not just being a pure facilitator? Can he get away doing that?
Not in the Rockets offense.
You don't think so?
Because James Harden's the only other. In the Sixers, it's different because you have Joel Embiid who can score. You have Tobias Harris who can score. You have two other scorers on your offense. If you take Russell Westbrook away from a primary scoring role in the Rockets offense, you are left to legit one scorer.
Yeah.
And we've seen that when CP3 goes down and James Harden is legit the only other scorer and he's relying on PJ Tucker's 15 points a game, he doesn't really get it done. But there is, let's play devil's advocate, because there is a scenario in which these two could coexist. Let me throw out a stat to you. In NBA history, 10 teams in the past had two qualifying players with a usage rate above 30%, which Harden and Westbrook both are. 5 of those teams have made the NBA Finals, and then other 3 teams reached the NBA Conference Finals in their conference. In today's NBA, if we use those same stats, there'd be a couple teams that would do that. LeBron and AD on the Lakers, Kawhi and PG on the Clippers, and KD and Kyrie get very, very close.
Yeah,
on the Nets.
I was looking at it, I think like KD had 29% usage rate. So
if we follow that pattern, we're looking at the Rockets in the Western Conference Finals at least.
Well, I guess, but then, I mean, all these teams can't make the Western. 3 of those teams are in the Western Conference.
West, right.
So, like, yes, 10 out of the 10 teams, 8 of them have at least reached the conference finals, but that is not considering the fact that they're going up against other teams who have the exact same thing.
Right.
And like I said, like I do think that Russell Westbrook will make it out of the first round. I think, while Harden and Westbrook aren't really great postseason career guys, the combined talent of the two, plus you have Capella, who's a useful player, I don't see them failing completely in the postseason. But when it comes down to it, are you taking them over LeBron and AD? Are you taking them over Kawhi and PG? Hell, are you taking them over Clay and Steph and Draymond? Personally, I can't do that right now.
No, because all those other teams and all those other players play different positions. Like, you look at all the closest is Kawhi and PG, and you could probably say that they play different positions.
Right, but they have a very wide ranging of skill sets that even when one is doing something, the other can exist off ball, where with Russell Westbrook, that's not the case. So.
Yeah. And then we go into the flip side of this. What created this matchup or this reunited state with Westbrook and Harden is the fact that the Rockets traded my man's Chris Paul over the OKC Thunder. I think our statistician Statman had a little bit too much fun with making this this next little segment here. He literally titled it "Paul may be washed," which he's lucky I'm a very peaceful person, because when I read that on the script, I was not happy. And I'm not going to say he's washed, because washed would mean that he's not really useful anymore.
He's not mellow.
He's not mellow. Mellow is washed.
Yep. Mellow is washed. Chris Paul's not mellow. But from 2007 to 2018, Chris Paul shot 47.9% and never had a field goal percentage below 46%. In 2018-2019, that dipped to 41% from the field. He also had a 56% true shooting percentage last year, and that's his second lowest in his season, or second lowest season in his career. Look, I know Chris Paul's not the player he once was. Everybody knows that. He's lost a step. He's had a lot of surgeries. He's had a lot of injuries. But there are a lot of teams that can still use Chris Paul and what he brings. The fact that he was still a second option on a team who probably could have and probably should have made it to the Western Conference Finals lets you know that right there and then.
Right.
But I just think he was in too big of a role with the Rockets. He just needs to be able to take a step back and whatever team he's on, and we'll see a productive Chris Paul again.
Right. Well, I mean, the real question is, and we'll get into it a little bit, is where is he going to go? Because we talk about that monster contract that makes it hard to move. For OKC, I don't blame him for taking on Chris Paul.
Right.
Chris Paul's still a very useful player, as you said.
There's a lot of players, the Warriors make a living off this, who have come out of their prime, moved their role, and now aid a championship-level team. Regardless of an Andre Iguodala, we could say Ray Allen with the Heat. We could say Jason Kidd with the Mavs. We could say a lot of people who have moved their roles, as guards even, and you may have to come off the bench. You may have to play 20 minutes a game.
And that is really the bit like Jason Kidd on the Mavericks. Took a step back. He was a very good part of that. But it really just takes the step back.
Sure, and now that Chris Paul is a member of the Thunder, OKC realistically has a couple options and scenarios they can pull right now, right? Mm-hmm. Scenario 1, OKC buys out Chris Paul, making him an unrestricted free agent.
Look, there was a report that came from Woj actually today, right before this episode, that says that's becoming less and less likely as it comes on that he may be a member of the Thunder, at least to start the season. But let's go into fairy tale land and say that OKC does buy him out. Where should he go? Where would he have the best impact? I know my answer right off the get-go.
So Right, and I know I don't mean to steal your thunder, but I do think the most likely, if he gets bought out and if he's willing, like, look, like, all right, my career as a superstar is over. I'm out of here. I got to do what you said. I got to fit in. I got to be somewhat of a role player. The Los Angeles Lakers, it would take a vet minimum. I don't know if he's, like, prepared to go that far yet. If he did, and he does join his buddy LeBron up there, I think that they could be a very dangerous team.
A very dangerous team.
Yeah, again, they may not buy him out, but I think it's definitely possible for him to be bought out right now, especially with the last few years in his career and in the league. Being a vet, you want to be on a winning team, right? It's not so much about the money. You just want to finish strong. I don't think it's necessarily a huge issue to him, but he's signed 2 Supermaxes, including this one. He's just trying to win a ring, and I could see him doing that in LA, and I agree with Jake.
I hope that he's just trying to win a ring. Like, if you look at Chris Paul's career resume, he's accomplished pretty much everything you could hope to set out to accomplish as a player. You're top 10 in steals. You're top 15. I believe he's close to top 10 in assists. He's going to be one of the best point guards of all time. He's a first-class ticket to Springfield to go in the Hall of Fame. What's the one thing off that resume that keeps your legacy going from decades to decades to decades? And that's that ring. And not only is it that ring, but you win it in a place like Los Angeles, and my man, you're stamped in NBA history.
They're stacked.
There's also precedent, because look at like Gary Payton, Karl Malone, guys who love joining. They joined LA to try and grab a ring. I believe with Shaq and Kobe. So that's definitely not out of the question. Again, it just really comes down to Chris Paul. Does he want to do that, or would he rather be making decent money for a team like Minnesota?
But here's the thing. If OKC buys out his contract, he got the rest of that money. They bought him out. They gave it to him. You know what I mean?
That's true.
So, like, you get that money, and you get it right then and there.
So then tell me, Jewel, what is the other scenario?
Let's move on to scenario 2, is OKC finds a trade partner to deal CP3 to.
And look, I think that's their second option. That's what they want to do, because they want to be able to get something for. They got something for Russ. They got a whole lot for Russ. They got a whole lot for PG. I don't think Sam Presti's in the mood of their market right now to just let Chris Paul walk for nothing. He's going to want to get something for him.
And that is, as we alluded to, Waj said that Thunder tried to trade Chris Paul, but there's an increasingly likely scenario that he will start the season on OKC.
You know why? It's the Boogie thing.
Right.
Not a huge market for him.
Yeah, not a huge market, but that's a lot because of the contract, like we talked about. It's for good reason that there's not a market, and it's not even because he's a bad player. I think that he can still be very useful. It's just for what price? Because if you're a team like Miami who would love to have Chris Paul, then you're going to have to give up a big chunk of your team to make that money work. Is that worth it?
And it also sucks that it's coming. This is coming after all the moves in free agency have been made, because teams have spent their money. Teams got their package. They don't want to move it again. Like, I think he could be really good on like Indiana, a team who has a lot of pieces and are missing a really good point guard role.
Well, they brought in Brogdon though, so it's like there, boom.
But Brogdon's been one of the best players off the bench.
And
he
said, no, if you can get Chris Paul, Brogdon becomes secondary.
The bench, right?
But I'm just saying, like, back to your point of the money's already spent, the moves are already moved, like, they would probably have loved to do that instead of the Brogdon deal. It's just they can't do it.
They can't do it anymore.
So
it really. And
I can't.
I
see
do
him.
not want to have to become a Timberwolves fan. Like, I hope that I don't hope. That,
I can't see him getting traded. I don't know. I really don't know.
At least right now, he'd have every jersey the color of the rainbow.
I really would.
He'd have the Shaq. The Shaq's like every color of the rainbow.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
All right, third scenario.
Yeah, I mean, just fine what you guys said. What it's mostly going to look like. OKC keeps Chris Paul and he plays as a member of the Thunder.
Look, I mean, there are worse things. At least my expectations are low.
Right.
Like, if he goes to a team that contends, I'm looking for him to do well. I'm looking for the team to do well. If he stays with the Thunder, I just hope he doesn't get hurt.
Well, but can they not sneak into the playoffs with that? Like,
no,
think about their
not
lineup.
the West. No,
think
not
about
the
their
West.
lineup.
No, not the West.
Think about their lineup, because really all it takes. So they'd have Chris Paul. They had Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who I really, really like, and I think he could actually learn a ton.
Guard. He's also a point guard.
Right, but he could, just like Harden can also be a point guard. They a little bit ambiguous. He's a combo guard.
Right.
But they also have Gallinari, Steven Adams. They have some upside guys in Hamidou Diallo, who's not really anything right now, but he could be something. All they'd really have to do is be better than the Spurs, the Pelicans or like the Mavs, in my opinion. Those are the teams. And Dennis Schroeder we forgot to mention as well.
And Dennis Schroeder.
So, like,
you got you have 3 point guards, and you still have Chris Paul, probably even still with his age and his mileage, probably still the best player on that team.
Right, no, he's still like a borderline all-star player.
And
in the West, maybe not. But.
And I love Chris Paul. He's my favorite player of all time. He's no one's best player right now. He's just not your best player. And if he is on the Thunder, if he is your best player, you are legitimately looking at a 30 to 35 win season, which will not get you into the playoffs in the Western Conference.
So, like, this doesn't really necessarily work specifically, but OKC's never been a loser. What if they say, look, this isn't who we are, we're not losers, and they go ahead and trade, like, 6 of those picks for someone like, I don't know, like 4 of those picks for D'Angelo Russell.
At the trade deadline, yeah.
So that doesn't really work because, once again, we already talked about the guards, but just someone like that, like another star to where they're now, once again,
I'm more
team.
comfortable with D'Lo playing off the ball than I am Shai Gilgeous-Alexander playing off the ball.
Right.
Like, I'm much more comfortable
And then if
with
you
that.
move Chris Paul later, then you still are set up because you have the young star in a guy like D'Lo, and you have a young star in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
The only thing that keeps that vision alive for me is the fact that they haven't moved Steven Adams yet. Or they did. I don't know if they tried to.
It's kind of like the same situation, in my opinion. He has another big contract.
But that's a very, very useful play. You're going to tell me teams out there wouldn't be willing to take on Steven Adams' contract to be on his team?
I mean, depending on the team. Once again, the moves were already made, and a lot of the money's already tied up. And a guy like Steven Adams isn't going to change your team enough where you're unloading multiple role players or multiple picks for him.
But he's only whoever trades for Steven Adams gets a very good big who's still in his mid-20s. There's not much mileage on him. He just in the past 2 or 3 years became the Steven Adams that is now. So what I mean?
So
like he still has a long longevity of a career.
He reminds me of like Jonas Valanciunas, how the Raptors traded him, kind of like almost the same player. But it'll be interesting. Look, I don't even know. I cannot predict the. Oh, actually, I did predict the NBA last episode.
Oh, relax.
Check out our Instagram.
That's why you can't let him have it.
He's chewing his own horn over there.
It is hard to predict the NBA for sure.
If this offseason told us anything, it is you cannot predict anything in the NBA.
Yeah. For sure.
All right, guys, now that the NBA season is dying down a bit, let's shift over to the changes the major leagues are kind of making between the NFL, the MLB, and the NBA. Let's start with the very corporate NFL.
Very corporate indeed.
Yeah.
The NFL could really get flipped sideways if some of these rule changes come into place. The first big thing, and this is very new, is that they're kicking around the idea of an 18-game regular season, but only a 16-game limit for players. So it'd be 18 games for the teams.
But you have to sit.
But you have to sit. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But like you each player can only play 16 games.
I think
I'm on the fence about that.
For the NFL, that's good. For the players, I don't know. I mean, I guess you're still only playing 16 games. You think like you're still going to maybe like you're injured for 2 games, and right there is your 2 games that you missed.
Right. The Players Union has already rejected the
Right, they've already rejected that. That doesn't mean that it'll get totally nixed, though.
To me, it's all about greed. This screams greed to me.
How else does the NFL do?
I started with its corporate. It's a money pit, is what it is. It's strategizing essentially to accommodate people's schedules. Right, you play most of your games on a Sunday night so people can watch. The whole idea of them adding the 2 games just means they're cutting out the preseason games. Right,
which is good.
Which I don't disagree with. But this idea would affect the fans, the players, the coaches, the whole nine.
Fantasy football, that's the biggest one.
Listen to this, fans. You're robbing fans when they potentially buy tickets to see, say, second, third string players that they don't want their money going towards. No offense to you second and third round players, but that's exactly what's going to happen.
It's the whole reason the NBA fines you for sitting your best players just because of rest. Right. Fans buy tickets to see LeBron.
How do you solve that quarterback issue too? Like, you know what I mean? Like shifting around your players like that.
What it would be is you got 2 games where you got a real stinky quarterback running out there for most teams.
But there are some teams in the NFL, a very select few, but there are some teams who can't afford or at least can't predict this is when I can sit my player because they may need that game. We may need to win this game.
Well, then it comes down to but that it just adds in another fold with anything so groundbreaking as this would be. You know, the changing of how many games you play. Mm-hmm. There's going to be people who are adversely affected. And there's going to be people who benefit from it. The reason I don't think it will happen is because, well, actually, you know what? This could be, now I'm thinking about this could be a reason why it maybe does. It affects fantasy football so much. And when you look at why, part of the reason why the NFL is so dominant is because it has a huge underbelly of this fantasy football where there are thousands of people who may not even be football fans who are playing, devoted football fans who are playing fantasy sports. This now makes it much more difficult to do that.
There's a whole following. All three of us have talked to someone who you can tell doesn't really know a lick about the game of football, but that can rattle you off stats because they play fantasy football.
I don't think you should fix what's not broken.
I
think it should stay how it is.
You know what really happens? You know those meaningless Thursday night games that get played?
That's the one.
That's the one. If I'm going to sit my quarterback, it's going to be on Thursday night when the Patriots are playing the freaking Dolphins.
Those Dolphins-Bills games on Thursday night.
Why am I going to play? Why am I going to play my starting quarterback on 3 days rest? No.
Right, yeah, that's a good point. But
should have a second bye week for all that.
Yeah, true. And like I think that this is all stuff that will get talked about. The CBA, which is upcoming for the NFL, as a football fan, I'm super worried. Yeah. I'm super worried that we're
headed for a lockout. We're headed for a lockout.
Yeah, another lockout, which may be a good thing for some of these players to heal up. But
what if we get an NFL lockout season like we got an NBA lockout season? They all just go and run random.
That's what I'm saying. Is that like now
7-on-7s everywhere
in the social media age, like to watch like what an NFL player will just do in his spare time would be pretty interesting.
Go join Mike Vick's flag football league.
Yeah, or like the XFL or whatever the new football league is.
There's also another big rule change that will really affect the landscape of the NFL that could be coming in the next CBA agreement would be the ability to challenge pass interference calls called against you. Yeah, I think every NFL head coach and franchise and fan is going to love that if that gets implemented.
Yeah, you know who won't like it? NFL referees.
Oh, yeah. They're not going to be able to call anything.
It's already, like, one of the most judgmental calls. Like, I just don't know.
No, it's the most judgmental call in sports.
It is.
That and, like, a travel.
I mean, but it's you're going to look back, and then it's just the same judgment process. You go over, like, maybe you missed something where, like, 2 out of 10 times you can look back and say, oh, he definitely wasn't holding here. It was just, like, in the heat of the moment, I saw something different. But overall, I just don't know how this helps because you're still going to go into, they overturned that. But in my opinion, that's still pass interference.
I mean, but it should go with any replay and any challenge call. You should only be able to overturn it if it's clear and undisputable evidence, which many of these pass interference calls aren't clear and undisputed. There's so much hand checking, so much movement that goes on that even when you slow down the video, it's so blurry that you can't possibly tell if he clearly was holding, if he clearly was a pass interference or not.
Yeah, true. I don't know. Well, we'll see. I mean, these changes, any change with the NFL is always a big one because, as you said, they're so corporate and they're so regimented, but it'll be interesting.
What about the changes with the MLB here with the mechanical umps versus talking to players during the game? This debuted in the Atlantic League recently during their All-Star game last week. Other changes also included mound visits being eliminated aside from pitching changes and injuries, increasing the size of the bases as well by 3 inches and reducing the time between innings by 30 seconds. Per Jeff Passan saying this first group of experimental changes is designed to create more balls in play, defensive action, base running, and improve player safety. What do we think?
I think the MLB is just worried about how can we make our product more exciting and less boring, less downtime.
Which
they're going to try to do everything they can.
Now at least they're actively putting their mind to it. Like, beforehand it was, oh no, baseball's perfect the way it is. At least now, like, I don't agree really with any of these changes, to be honest. The mechanical umps is going to be like a fight that you have throughout history. I don't think MLB will ever get mechanical umps or like a thing that will tell you based on where the ball is if it's a strike.
It's close. I mean, ESPN puts up K-Zone, and you can clearly...
I don't think for the integrity of the game, I don't know, you're really changing... I mean,
sports
everything
has
about
to have
baseball.
a human element in it.
Look,
exactly.
Sports has to have a human
from my
element.
understanding, when they were testing it out last week, they were still using an umpire to overrule like missed calls, and computers make mistakes all the time, right? So you need the umpire there. And can you imagine something like that going wrong in the city of Philadelphia? There would be a freaking uproar.
If you remember,
there would be an uproar.
The hitchhike bot that made it all around the world hitchhiking. From place to place, it was a robot that said, "Hi, I'm Hitchhike Bot. Haha, take me wherever, drop me off wherever." Yeah, you didn't remember it because it got destroyed in Philadelphia.
Good.
It went all over the world, went to Philadelphia, and got busted to bits. Can you imagine if one of those things, the balloon
We'll talk
fall
to you.
in Citizens Bank Park, there would be some people waiting for it to be wheeled outside. That's a good point.
Love my city.
I actually don't like the mound visits, eliminating mound visits either. Like like you think that players are robots out there? Like no, sometimes a pitcher is in there rattled and he needs his pitching coach to come out and calm him down. Now we bring the whole infield in. We can strategize around it. We can help you out. What do you need to do differently? You eliminate that just for pitching changes. Like no, like you got to leave the human element.
I'm on the fence about this one. This one's very interesting to me for a couple reasons. One, when you're doing a mound visit, you're completely right. That's like the relationship between the coach and the player, and it would definitely speed up the games, though.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
but that's also what makes the
That's a big
excitement of the
part.
games. However, you got to look at it on the flip side too. There's like various other ways that you can call your plays and do signs without going to the mound between the pitcher. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can do, the
like all the
possibilities are endless.
Right, just like
Touches,
base running.
shin
All
guard,
the
chest
different-
protector,
right.
face
Right.
mask.
But that's not what a mound visit is for. Like I can play devil's advocate here and say maybe it wouldn't speed up the game because maybe that mound visit helped the pitcher get under
Right.
control and get those next two batters out. Instead, now you just have a rattled pitcher
Right,
out
and
there
also-
who's getting knocked around the
Right,
whole
the
way.
alternative is if you're not making a mound visit, then if you wanted to get your pitcher out of there, in this scenario, you can't visit the mound. You're like, all right, well, he's rattled clearly. I can't talk to him, so let me get him out of there. Then instead of a mound visit, you have a pitching change, which is a commercial break.
So you also see like catchers wearing the little wristbands that like football players use
Yeah.
now with all the plays too. So it's
Right.
interesting to see.
There's one more league that's looking to do some stuff, none of which really I agree with, and that's the NBA. Starting with this midseason NBA Cup, I don't know in what scope this makes sense, but it's an attempt to try to fix the quote unquote boring regular season. Which, by the way, we probably will have
Right, no longer a boring.
one of the
you don't
most
have that problem.
exciting NBA
Yeah.
regular seasons in a while. By raising the stakes, also season length will be an issue now. If you think the regular season is boring, now you're just making it longer. And all that it does is gives a chance for bad teams to like win something. Because I
Well,
don't
right.
see a team like the Lakers going for the NBA Cup if they have an actual NBA
If they have the
championship on
real,
the
right,
line.
but that's kind of I think the point to maybe like give tanking teams some incentive. Like I was for it, then I've read more about it, and I'm probably against it now that I think about it. They want to have it during All-Star Weekend.
It's like
and,
the FA Cup
and-
and the Premier
Right,
League.
exactly, and that's played all throughout the season. So that's this would be one tournament during All-Star break, like in the middle of the season.
But how does this make anything better? Players already
Because-
complain about load management. They
Right,
already
right.
complain about
So
back-to-back
really,
nights.
it's to give extra incentive to bad teams to not tank because you have something that might be meaningful, but in what regard is that more meaningful than getting the number one pick? Like probably not.
So if you win the FA Cup, if you win the NBA Cup, are you still in the regular season, the grand scheme of the NBA? Say if you're, the Suns, and the Suns still have the worst record in the overall regular NBA season, but somehow win the NBA Cup, are they still the first? Do they have the most
Right,
balls
but
in
as
the
well,
lottery?
and that's why these were, just to make clear, nothing. This is not
Not set in
happening
stone,
yet.
yeah.
They were exploratory talks, just brainstorming. But
Probably having the same conversation in the NBA board.
right, someone
We're
probably
right
said
here.
the same exact thing.
Yeah.
All I would say, like, what if it was something like you get an automatic bid to the playoffs if you win, and that way middling teams who in the West, like a team like OKC, might have more incentive to, instead of destroy their team, might have more incentive to go and do that. Obviously, like I'm just like spitballing here. This is
Right.
nothing that is set in stone, but like if you're fighting for a playoff spot, that's a lot different, and a lot more teams are going to be interested in it than say if it's just a regular, hey, pat on the back, hey, good job, you won the midseason tournament,
NBA is also trying to implement a challenge flag. Coaches may challenge a personal foul charge to their team, a call out of bounds violation, a goaltending violation, or a basket interference violation. Again, this is all hypothetical. Nothing's been nailed down, but these are talks that are kicked around. That is more useful than anything about an NBA Cup ever.
No, 100%. And like basketball, you want to talk about decisions and being hard on the referees. It happens in a split second.
Yeah.
A lot of these calls, and the NBA officials have to make more calls than a lot of NFL or any other sport have to make. This would allow, at least if there's something egregious, like the one that pops out to me is when Kevin Durant is like running out of bounds, grabs the ball and throws it back in, and is like out of bounds for like 5 seconds. They don't get it. That would change under this ruling.
Also, a basket interference call, because there are some basket interferences that get missed and some goaltends that get missed. And if you're able to challenge that and go back and get that call right, That's
Right.
Look,
Well,
the game's already stopped enough. Like it's already in the last 2 minutes going to the monitor for everything. So if we're gonna do it, you might as well be able to challenge everything. So get every call.
You'll have to, and this I think is going to be implemented. This is they call it a pilot for this NBA season. You are unlike the other things, you're going to be able to do this.
Okay.
But you're gonna have to burn a timeout to do it. And also the other thing to kind of counter what you said a little bit is that a lot of these violations, like a goaltending violation, out of bounds, basket interference. There's going to be a stop and play anyway because the foul's called.
Right.
So, I don't know. I like it. We'll see how it turns out. I'm going to love to see my man Brett Brown chuck that thing out there, get fired up a little bit. There's another drawback to the Sixers.
He's starting to
I think we went full circle.
You always got to
on the
circle
NBA.
back every couple segments.
He's
You just got
starting to say
to.
weird stuff. Let's move on.
I mean, another positive for that is you won't have to see the post-game press conferences with players complaining about the refs, even if they may deserve it. But let's move on. Let's speak some facts here. Nick Young on who rolls the best blunt in the NBA.
Oh.
He says probably Steve Kerr. Is he speaking facts?
Probably. I mean, he would know better than anyone else. Look,
Right.
they've won a few championships. I'm sure that they get crazy out there.
Laid back Cali dudes.
Yeah,
Steve Kerr,
man.
born and
Steve
raised.
Kerr has multiple times came out and spoken up against marijuana being a drug that leagues test for. Obviously, because the alternative is painkillers, which is a huge, there's an opioid epidemic. You don't want to pump people full of painkillers, but that's neither here nor there. Steve Kerr, he's a pretty good shooter, so I'm assuming he has good form. And when rolling the blunt, I'm sure that he has good form there too. It doesn't surprise me.
Look, I'm going to say no because I can't think there are a lot of there's a lot of players in the NBA.
That is true. The best.
I know there's a lot of players in the NBA who smoke weed. If you're going to give the rolling title to Steve Kerr, then he must be rolling up something immaculate.
Right.
Well, then who is it? Tell me who.
But off the top of my head, who I would say probably rolls the best blunt in the NBA, I got a couple. Brandon Ingram. Oh, come on. Every picture you've ever
He's
seen.
cracking up.
Every picture you've ever seen
picture.
of Brandon Ingram, this man looks stoned. J.R. Smith, because I just got it. He's just
My God, that's a good one.
J.R. Smith definitely is rolling up a couple.
Yeah, I saw. We caught Kawhi in the, we thought.
Yeah.
We caught Kawhi in the "What It Do, Baby" video.
Yeah.
Like it looks like he's kind of rolling something down there. I don't know.
I've seen that level of concentration in a movie vehicle a couple of times, and I know what it looks like.
Yeah, and if we're talking non-NBA, like the GOAT has to be Ricky Williams. Has to be Ricky Williams.
Not Josh Gordon?
Oh, Josh Gordon's up there too. Him and Josh Gordon are probably neck and neck because there's only a couple guys who can get kicked out of their sport for smoking weed repetitively. Those two are the ones who did it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. That's funny.
Look, Steve Kerr, if you really can roll the best blunt in the NBA, let me see something real quick. Let me see something.
What's that thing Stephen A. says? Lay off the
Oh,
weed.
Stay off the weed.
Stay off the weed.
Steve Kerr said no.
All right, guys. Elton Brand said when speaking about Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris, we are making those bets on those perimeter players, but I envision they will step up in crunch time. Let's hope so. Is he speaking facts?
Here we go.
I can't even look.
Again,
It is as traditional as anything is in the NBA that in the summertime the Sixers put all their eggs into Ben Simmons
Not
being able
just
to
the
come
Sixers.
back and knock down a
that's-
3-point jump shot.
They're not going to say, oh, crap, he sucks.
Right.
They should at this point, Matt.
come
They
on.
should have just realized what it is.
Here's what
Let me answer it.
Yeah.
No, he's not speaking.
Oh, it's shocking.
Because I've seen this movie before. It's like going back to and watching a movie over and over again and hoping that the end scene is different. It's not going to be. You can watch it over and over again. At some point, you got to realize what Ben Simmons is.
You're not about that Philadelphia freedom, are you? You're not
He's
the brother that loves.
I'm not
anti-Philly.
look. Here's the thing. I'm not anti-Philly. I don't dislike the Sixers at all. I'm just a realist. You guys aren't
Okay.
real when it comes
All
to the
right.
Sixers.
Here's what I'll tell you
I
is
am.
true. I think he's going to have. He has to shoot this year. He has to. It may not be good, may not be a lot, but he has to shoot more than 0.03 points attempted.
But this is what Elton Brand is saying.
Right,
He's going to be
I
good.
disagree with Elton Brand. I mean, he can't be a perimeter player if he doesn't have a jump shot. If he does, especially if he doesn't have off the dribble pull up. That I don't think he can still be an All NBA. He could still be an All-Star level player, but to call him a perimeter player
Jake,
is
I'm
a
very
little
proud
bit
of you.
over there.
This is growth. This is what I'm witnessing from you right now is growth.
First team All NBA for Ben Simmons. by the way.
And
You
we're
can
back
book
to
that.
small. And
you
we're-
can book
and we're
that
strict-
write it down wherever you can.
And we're
put
sure
money
to
on
get
it.
Joel. When he does that, we got to move on when he starts doing that.
All right, guys, moving on. Baker Mayfield talking about Odell Beckham Jr. saying he's here to play in front of his fans who actually show up to every game, pack the stadium, and love him for who he is. Is he speaking facts?
I mean, look, there's not much better going on in Cleveland. You know what I mean? Like
That's the thing. You can get away with a lot in Cleveland, man.
Yeah, like-
you can get away with headbutting and
As long as they win.
the net and kissing the net or proposing, whatever the hell he did.
I will say this: for as bad as the Browns have been, for as long as the Browns have been bad, that stadium is never empty.
Well, it's like the same thing we talked about with OKC, where it's like, what else are you going to do?
I mean, for a while they had LeBron come back for 3 or 4 seasons, for 4 seasons, and performed well every single time, led them to the finals every single season. They had the year that the Indians were the best team in baseball, blew a 3-1 lead in the World Series, but were the best team in baseball. So they have had, sprinkled in here and there some years where they have had teams that have been good.
Yeah.
So they've at least the city of Cleveland, not the football team, but the city of Cleveland has gotten a little taste of what success looks like.
Right.
And success may not look like headbutting the screen that you practice field
Or
goal
maybe it
kicking
does.
into.
I mean, who knows? Like, here's what I'm going to tell you about Odell Beckham Jr. is that the shit he got away, or the shit he was doing in New York, where they killed him in the newspapers for anything that he did, will not be going on in Cleveland, as you said. And I do think that Baker Mayfield is speaking facts, because as to everything that you just said, when you compare the New York market to the Cleveland market, it just does not stack up.
Right, they don't get, and New York will turn on you when stuff goes wrong.
Right.
I don't think.
I don't see Cleveland.
Well, Cleveland doesn't really have a choice. That's all they have in
Right,
Cleveland.
exactly.
The Cavs think again.
It's their sports.
The Indians are alright, but the Cavs think again. Not much to look forward to.
Right, let's shift over to the countdown, guys. Number 5.
The number of sets it took Novak Djokovic to defeat Roger Federer in their epic Wimbledon's finals match. I'm not like a huge tennis guy, but I did catch a piece of this match. These are two legends going at it, and
5-hour-long match.
and tennis as a sport,
Nuts.
the greats. When it comes down to that, there is no sport that compares with longevity. Like
no.
maybe hockey. I like.
Well,
it feels like they've been good for like 20 years.
Well, think about all the greats, men's and women in tennis. They've all been great for decades now.
Right, yeah.
Federer, Djokovic, and Nadal all been great for decades. Serena Williams been great for decades. Sharapova been great for a long time. Like they've all.
these
been
guys
really
are old, and
Sloane Stephens is starting that ascension of being good for a very, very long time. They've all been that way. It's like tennis and golf. If you don't got to rely on anybody else,
Right,
you
yeah,
can
probably
maintain.
fine.
Right, you
Track,
can maintain a level.
all those
you know what I mean?
sports, yeah.
Right, number 4.
Number 4, the number of 2016-2017 first and second team All-NBA players still on their team. That's James Harden, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Steph Curry, and Rudy Gobert. We've said it for the last 2 episodes. There's been a lot of shifting and a lot of change in the NBA, but these players right here are remaining on the same. And aside from Rudy Gobert, those are probably 3 players that are probably going to end up on the first team.
Well,
next
and
year.
also, to be fair, I don't think Giannis and Gobert have had a chance to flee yet to another team. I think they've been under contract. Maybe Curry had a chance to. I think he re-upped in that time frame. But
Curry was the first $200
right, 200 million.
extension. Yeah,
Yeah. But yeah, those guys. That's a really good group of players.
yeah,
right there.
that's elite class right there.
Number 3.
The number AD will wear since Nike did not let LeBron gift Anthony Davis his number 23 due to a surplus of new LeBron jerseys.
This almost went perfect for LeBron. It almost went perfect, and then Nike said, "No, we're still business. You can't do us like that."
Want to bet that in Space Jam, Anthony Davis is wearing number 23?
Hey, dude, nice shirt.
I might bet. Yeah, I have the
Oh,
Space
look
Jam
at that.
shirt on.
Boom.
Yeah, I completely forgot I had the
I was
shirt
looking
on.
at it the entire
Good catch,
time.
Good catch, Jewel. I'm not going to make that bet because that's something very, very interesting, and I will. Like, I wouldn't put it past LeBron to have a little bit of, like, shade thrown in there to the NBA. Like, he can.
I could see that.
Like, maybe even a scene where Anthony Davis's character is, like, wants to wear 23 and someone says, you can't wear that, and he snatches it back.
Right,
So I can do whatever I want.
I'm
You
sure
sure they're buds now. They do Taco Tuesdays together.
You
Oh,
saw
yeah,
that?
I
You
saw
saw
that.
that?
Yeah,
So
I
I feel like you didn't like that.
Someone-
By the way you said, I can feel like
Honestly,
that.
I did double click it just because it was funny. I'll be honest.
Someone was like, "This is why Kawhi went here." Could you imagine Kawhi doing this? He would just sit there.
He
and
would
be
just
like,
point. Just
Go Tuesday!
Make more tacos.
Jake's like, nah, please don't. Number 2.
Number 2, the number of QBs to win 50-plus games in a 4-year span since 1990. Those are the two best of the modern era, and that's Brady and Manning right there. I'm going to say this just because I know it's going to get under Stat Matt's skin. Tom Brady's the best quarterback of all time. If I ever have a chance to say it.
Tom Brady's the greatest. He's not the best.
Here we go.
What does that even mean?
Open up a can.
Yes, but same I think it's kind of like the same argument as LeBron versus Jordan. Jordan probably has like more resume stuff, but in terms of when you look at actual players, so he's saying that Peyton Manning's an actually better player. He doesn't have a better resume though.
We're going to move on, guys.
Bringing it down to number 1.
The amount of road series that the Kansas City Royals have won this year, that is numero uno. It's like you look away, you blink. And like Kansas City went from being someone who was contending for a title to winning one road series over halfway through the year. How does that happen?
Yeah, they won a title 3 years. It hasn't been that long. They won a title, what, 3
Did you
years
blink?
ago? 4 years ago? Yeah,
I mean,
2015, 2016. Like, that's been that long, and now they're one of the worst teams in baseball again.
It's craziness.
And life comes at you fast, even what we live in. But that's all the time we have for now. Let's get some shots up at the buzzer. Julie, have anything to say at the buzzer?
I do. I ended up running a little late today, and as you boys know, I walked in with Arby's today. An Arby's cup. When was the last time you had Arby's?
Wow.
Like a couple months ago.
Long time ago.
I like
I like Arby's too, and everybody's just
I'm
like,
popular
meh.
opinion.
Yeah, they kind of.
I feel like with your
Why?
stomach,
What's your
nah,
deal?
You could
You
not
don't like
do
the curly
Arby's with your
fries?
stomach, man.
No, the curly fries are great. That's the best part. It's just like all the meat that they handle. Like it's just like cold cuts and fast food. Even though I guess is it hot?
It's
Was it
hot
hot?
Yeah.
All right. I don't know. Maybe I'll have to
They
try
have
it out.
the
There is
beef,
one near
man.
me. I'll
What's
try
your
it
beef
out.
with the beef?
I love roast beef, but like I don't know. Fast
It's
food
not
roast
just-
beef.
I'm like
is
mad.
kinda-
You see me? I'm like,
ham,
Right.
turkey, bacon. They got it
Yo,
all.
shout
man.
out Arby's. Let us get a sponsor. I'll try your food.
For real. I'll eat it all. Jake, anything to say at the buzzer?
It's going to be a great end of the summer. We have Chance the Rapper album coming up on us. He officially announced last night on, I think, Jimmy Kimmel or one of the Fallon Kimmel, one of the late night guys. He announced that it's coming out the 26th. I'm a huge Chance the Rapper fan. The last time that he released an album in the
was
summer
great.
was Coloring Book. One of the
was
best
great.
summers for music. One of the best summers I can remember in 2016.
For real.
So I'm really excited for that.
Yeah. Look, I mean, the singles he put out that little Ford thing EP. And we've already talked about Groceries. I'm like less and less hype on Chance as he releases more singles.
okay.
But
Keep-
and
keep
album is
guys-
different. He's artistic enough to release a
that
good
energy.
album.
Did you guys see that alligator they found in Chicago?
Chance the Snapper?
Chance the Snapper.
Yeah, that's my man.
That's your
He's
man?
about to snap.
They found him in the Humboldt Park Lagoon in Chicago 1 week after the reptile was first spotted. I cracked
They
up
are.
right now on my timeline.
What makes some relevant to Chance the Rapper?
in
Why?
Chicago.
Grow up.
Anyway, my at the buzzer is so I've been recently trying to get into some really good shape, not just being thinner, but having good exercise and a real well-rounded diet. I've actually been training to run a 5K and a half marathon this summer.
Really?
No.
Oh,
Don't nod
nice.
your heads. It's not a good thing. Let me tell you how out of shape I am. I run this little route in my neighborhood, and my dad said he runs it, so I'm like, all right, my dad's 55. I was like, if he can run it, I can run it and I can body this thing. I ran it one time yesterday, and I legit got back into my house and thought I was going to pass out.
Yeah.
Like, it was right before our
I've been
conference call, right in the
Been
morning, and I literally was sitting there looking at my computer 2 minutes before I had to call you guys and was like, I don't know if I can do this.
I can't breathe.
Like, I literally can't breathe. I'm sweating all over the place. Like, those little mini rainbows are popping up. It's bad, man. Like, I don't know. You just immediately stop playing sports, and all of a
Dude,
sudden...
I'm in the same boat. I did the same thing. I was running up those hills in my neighborhood, and I thought I was going to pass out.
Yeah, it's bad. And now my legs, I can barely walk. My legs are all sore. And just, you want to talk about life coming at you fast. I'm 23, and I feel like I got the body of a 50-year-old man.
Hey, man, get back on that horse, though.
I'm going to try. But that's all the time we have for this episode today. It was a great one. Big ups to Greg Barron, Kyle Sobieski, and Stat Matt Robinson behind the camera. From my partner, Joel Schmitz.
It's been real. It's been fun. It's been real fun.
To my main man's Jake Galley, I'm James Jackson. And these have been the facts.
Straight up.